What's up, Jet Team? Ryan here. Welcome back to the channel. If you haven't been here before, I'm a former F-15E combat fighter pilot, F-16 Thunderbird pilot, and current commercial pilot. And someone on the BJet Clean Instagram asked if I could bring you into the cockpit of the Thunderbirds and show you some training missions. So ask and you shall receive, my friend. So this is a series where I'm going to instruct you and teach you how to become a Thunderbird pilot. And this is what I would be teaching an actual Thunderbird pilot, because as a Thunderbird, my last year, I was an instructor training new Thunderbirds, and now that gets to be you. This is a series of videos, so if you haven't checked out the ones before this, go ahead and check those out after this video. You can watch this one first if you want, but definitely go back and check those out and stay to the end of this video, because guys, you gotta watch all these videos, because at the end I want to be able to certify you as the newest Thunderbird pilot. But before we get going, if you would, just ready for it? You ready for it? Dominate that like button, and hey, maybe even subscribe. Every time you like and subscribe, a pilot somewhere gets their wings. I'm excited you're here. Let's dive into this episode of Thunderbird pilot training. Here we go. All right, so we've tucked it into formation position. And again, guys, back to the basics. That's something that we always want to be thinking of. So right now, we're looking at the front of the missile rail, aligning that with the back of the canopy, and the back of the missile rail with the scoop. That's going back to basics. So we got to make sure we have that down before anything else. Now we're gonna start to go into the vertical here, so it's really important that you don't get too deep. If you get too deep as you pull up, you could be a conflict with number 4. All right, guys, so that's the breakaway from the high bomb burst. Now, the really important part about that is to turn 90 degrees exactly.
The prophecy is true.
And it comes with practice. But what I would typically do is I would rotate and put my feet on the horizon and then pull back down through the horizon like I was doing a loop. And when you're doing a loop, if you see your wings off center at all, I mean, it's super obvious. Can't hide that from anybody. And if your wings are tilted to the side, you're not gonna do a perfect 90-degree rollout. If you are tilted exactly straight, then you'll roll out perfectly and you'll look like this. And at this point in time right now, I'm floating in the straps. Ryan, why are you floating in the straps? Well, I'll tell you right now. The reason why is because this jet, it doesn't roll well when it's loaded. And loaded means it has G-forces on the plane. So right now I'm unloading, which means a push and then a nice little rotation towards the horizon. The jet just flies a lot better at slow speeds when it's unloaded without G. Okay, so here I am upside down, focused on my heading. So I'm making sure I'm getting to the exact correct heading. I mean, ultimately, guys, I want to get you to plus or minus 1 degree, so you have a perfect 90-degree turnout, and all 4 of us are flying exactly 90 degrees off from the other. It looks super sharp when you can make this work. So let's see how the rest of it goes. Nice smooth rollout, unloaded like we talked about. Now I'm just focused on my heading and my airspeed. We're gonna be flying right at 420 miles per hour in this example. So I'm accelerating, getting up to that airspeed. And here in a second, we're gonna turn and point directly at the ground, so get up for it. This is one of the fun maneuvers though, because you're looking around, you don't have to look at the boss right now. I'm totally focused on just flying a sharp jet. All right, so I do this nice slow rotation. Again, exactly to 90 degrees, and then I'm gonna pull probably about 4 to 4.5 Gs right here. All right, so this is gut check time, guys, because we're pointed directly at the ground and accelerating extremely fast. So at this point, you have to be aware of the terrain that's around you. There's a lot of different show sites that I did where essentially you have a mountain below you. And when I had that, I would try to go to the edge of the mountain so that the elevation of the mountain didn't affect my parameters. And then I would basically treat the mountain like a half pipe, and I would try to roll out right above the mountain, maybe a couple hundred feet above it, and use it as a half pipe to shoot into the hit. And the hit is where all the jets look like they're meeting at the same place in space at the same time. Now, obviously there's depth there, so it looks like we're right over top of each other, but there's depth behind us, so we're not gonna hit, and we have different rules that we set up to make sure we don't. But this is gut check time, guys. This is where you gotta reach down deep and be in the moment. So there's a golfer, his name is Gary Player, and he talks about failing doesn't just happen in one moment. It's the culmination of a lot of negative thoughts that manifest themselves during times of high pressure. This is an extremely high pressure moment. I mean, the entire demonstration is, as you could probably imagine, 500 miles an hour, 2 feet away from the jet next to you. But at this point right here, if you don't act precisely and you lose track of where you're at, or you don't G-strain properly while you're pointed directly at the ground, it could mean certain death. So this is the time where you gotta reach down deep. You gotta reach down deep and make sure that you're making the right decisions. The way you're gonna do that is you're gonna chair fly prior to this. So that means you're going to visualize all these different maneuvers prior to doing it. And we're gonna hit little windows. We're gonna hit little check marks in space. So when I started that roll, I wanted to be probably about 3.2 miles away from the center point at 350 to 400 miles an hour, whatever we were deciding on as a team, as long as we're all flying the same airspeeds. And then you do wind correction. So if you have wind coming from a certain direction, you subtract if it's a headwind, or if you've got some sort of a tailwind, you got to make sure that you're subtracting from that as well. There's all kinds of different math problems. I won't get into those right now, but at the end of the day, it comes down to being in the moment and being able to execute like a champion. So let's see how I execute. So here we are, pointed at the ground, accelerating to 400 miles an hour. You're gonna see here in a second about a probably 5.5 G pullout. And again, being mindful of the mountains around me. Using the mountains as a half pipe was one of my favorite things to do. So let's watch that right now. There you go, you can see the jet kind of shaking a little bit. That's from the G's.
Oh, jeez!
Now you don't want to bleed off too much energy, so as I'm pulling those G's, I'm putting the throttle forward. You can see we're moving along the ground pretty fast right now. Now it's all about checking energy, and then I'm looking outside for number 3. I'm gonna pass slightly above number 3 and as close as safely possible to him or her wing-wise. So boom, I just passed them. Now, if you look straight up right now, you can see our smoke trails up there, and that's what you essentially want to see. So it looks relatively close to 90 degrees off for all the different players. I'm not seeing one of the smoke trails going up and to the left. Could be environmentals, or maybe we only did it with 3 that day. I can't quite remember, but at the end of the day, 90 degrees off is what you want. And I'm seeing a nice solid 180 degrees out for 2 of them, and then 90 degrees off for the jet that's going down and to the right. So that's looking sharp right there. Again, now it's about energy. So I'm going uphill, as you can see right now. I've got the throttle either tapping afterburner or in mill power. Mill power just means the most you can get without going into afterburner. All right, and then I'm gonna do an aggressive 5.5 to 6 G pull down right here. Wham! I'm throwing on the G. This is one of the most fun things to do. This is the most fighter pilot thing you can do on the Thunderbirds, because you are just totally focused on stick and rudder and getting rejoined as fast as possible. I mean, this is the thing that I look forward to probably the most. It was so much fun. So now I'm checking energy and airspeed. As you can see my cross check here, I'm looking outside, and right there you can kind of see the angle of the camera change. And that's because I have a ton of closure, probably somewhere around 500 miles an hour of closure at half a mile, which is insane. So I'm using opposite direction rudder to kill some of that energy and slide myself into position. I'm probably putting the speed brakes out here as well. It just depends on what you need, but speed brakes, opposite direction rudder, and you just slide it in like you're on a snowboard. Again, just so much fun. I'm double checking the other aircraft, trying to be symmetric. I'm the instructor, so I have to rejoin symmetrically to the other aircraft. I'm just asking him to do his best rejoin, and I'm trying to match it. Now I'm tucking it back in to spread formation. Ah, look at that. Yeah. Oh, that's a nice rejoin. Solid rejoin. You can tell I'm excited in the cockpit as well. Yeah, buddy. So much fun. Just such a good time there. So there you go, guys. There is your 5th lesson on how to become a Thunderbird pilot. So if you haven't seen the other videos, go back and watch those, because at the end of this series, I want to be able to officially sign you off as a Thunderbird fighter pilot, and I can't do that unless you've watched all the videos. And before you go, please go ahead and dominate that like button for me, and hey, maybe even subscribe. You can also say hello to me on the BJet Clean Instagram. Would love to hear from you. Most of all, thanks for being here. Have a great day.